Welcome to HortTube. My name is John Putnam. We're out in front of an automotive shop in Northwest Connecticut, and we were staying overnight in our RV across the street, and we saw this last evening, this row of Hydrangea Paniculatas combined with some Emerald Arborvitae and several other things here with it. Some ornamental grasses, a dwarf gold thuja as well, Japanese maple, weeping cherry. Really great combination of things used as a screen in front of this automotive shop. Typically, I don't like to commit so much to one thing, like this entire row of emeralds. I've talked about that on the channel. So I would probably have this be some portion of my screen and then have some other things rotating. The Hydrangea Paniculatas you see with the beautiful color on them. This is not great lighting. We're backlit back here, so I know you can't see it as well as we would like for you to be able to see it, but it's really striking. Up here, these Hydrangea Paniculatas pick up these pink tones, and there's been a lot of selecting for this over the years. I grew Pinky Winky years ago, never saw it pink in Raleigh, North Carolina, but up here, you know, it would turn these shades of pink. And just darker and darker rich colors. It seems like there's 5 new Hydrangea Paniculatas every year. And the further north you go, the more color you're gonna get on them like this, where they go from white to pink to then the papery color. We skipped that in Raleigh and the South, but there's a lot of selecting for that going on. And we actually have one in our garden at the house that was slightly pink before we left the house. So kind of excited that through selective breeding, we're gonna see this show up in the South as well in the future. These Hydrangea Paniculatas, of course, could be Hydrangea arborescens and be, you know, native hydrangeas that we could use out here. Also, those now come in pink shades and that kind of thing as well. Lots of pollinators on them. The Emerald Arborvitae, if we're in the South, we probably, you know, these are native. We say they're native, but they're native to the Northeast, north of Pennsylvania, and in the highest mountains in North Carolina and Virginia. So are they native to the people in the Southeast? Lots of them get planted. I see a lot of them struggling in the landscapes, and a lot of issues on them, just dropping dead. Sudden arborvitae death is what we'll call it. But in the South, we could use podocarpus for this. We could use junipers for this that are upright and narrow. We could use thuja plicatas. There are now Western arborvitaes that are slightly narrower, so that may be better selection. The gold arborvitae that are back here that we'll talk about in just a minute, there's all kinds of chartreuse colored little meatballs that could be used to produce this same look. And then the Stella d'Oro daylilies that are on the edge here, not necessarily amongst my favorites. And there's lots of other perennials or annuals that I might use in this border. But as Steph said, at high speed coming down the road, this vivid yellow color is all you're gonna see. You're not gonna see any other detail in these other than this grouping is gonna be vibrantly yellow. The one thing for sure is the Stellas will bloom for a long time. They've probably been blooming for months at this point, and you can come in here and take out these spent flower blooms like that pretty easily. The foliage will start to decline though here in late summer like it's doing now, and we get rust on them in the South somewhat. So again, not amongst my favorite, but this show of yellow color, like Steph just said, people are passing by, and you can hear the cars obviously as we're doing this. People are passing by at 45 miles an hour. It's a nice pop of color to them. They're not getting up in here and analyzing it, overanalyzing it like I am right this minute. So it's a good pop of color. We have Nightlight Cameos at the house that's a good replacement for this. This is a gold Thuja occidentalis. Soft to the touch. I love these soft to the touch conifers for sure, because on something like this, they're occasionally gonna come in here and probably prune or shape this, and it's just nice that it's not gonna be prickly when it happens. So up here in the north, this Thuja occidentalis is probably a great choice for this. For me, I think this is gonna be a little heat stressed. It's likely gonna bleach on the top out in the sun in Raleigh because of that heat stress. And so we're using the Nightlight Cameos, which has a very similar look to it. It probably is a little more upright and roundish, where this one has more of a kind of a lower doming shape to it, but very, very similar. And our Nightlight doesn't bleach at all. So 2 different things you could use. Of course, you could use a gold spirea as well, would work for this, to get this chartreuse pop of color that's up against these Stella d'Oro daylilies and up against this blood-good Japanese maple. This blood-good Japanese maple, for us in deeper south, this one burns out a bit you know, we have lots and lots of them, but by this time of year, we'll see that the leaves have just kind of been burnt quite a bit. And up here, that just hasn't occurred. So they're still gonna get good fall color on this. We have a Twombly's Red Sentinel, which is a little more heat tolerant overall than Bloodgood. And so for us, Bloodgood needs to go in a hair of shade. And then when you put something like this in a shadowy space, like we're filming this morning in a shadowy space, you see it doesn't pop quite as well. Up here, they can grow this out in the full sun. But we have, like I say, the Twombly's Red Sentinel in the full sun in the south that really holds up through the summer heat and is in a spot where you can, these darker colors need the sunlight. That's what I'm saying, in order to really show off. If we put them in shadowy spaces, they just disappear a bit. But this is a great little end piece to this screening line. They used a compact growing Pinetum and they rotated them in between these Hydrangea Paniculatas. They have a grass, a Paniculata, then the dwarf thuja. Again, we have options for the dwarf thuja over here, options for the dwarf Pinetum. You could use the Mulberry, you know, one of the darker ones, brighter ones. We could also use a variegated grass-like plant, like a Feather Falls Carex would work in here, maybe in a group of 3 rather than 1, and so it's not so, you know, maybe. I think it might look a little better to space these a hair more and then put the occasional group of 3. You know, we collect one of everything, right? But the occasional group of 3 works pretty well. We have Sweet Starlight is the one that the Paniculata we have at the house that will pick up these pink tones in the fall and have the similar kind of growth. They are size controlling, these Hydrangea Paniculatas. I can see down in here where they cut them in the late winter last year. And up here, you can see they grew about 3 feet before they bloomed. So there's about 3 feet of growth. I think you're gonna get more growth than that in the south before they bloom. They're just gonna wake up earlier and probably grow more like 4 to 5 feet before they bloom. So you gotta kind of plan for that if you're getting one of the larger growing Hydrangea Paniculatas, that they're gonna grow different rates. But there's really no reason not to cut it back in the wintertime. It's gonna bloom on new growth, so it's gonna grow 3 feet. So if I leave it 6 feet and I'm not attempting to tree form it, you obviously, these are tree hydrangeas, they could be tree formed into something much larger, but if you're attempting to keep them full and this look that they're going for here, it's best to just cut them down, treat them like a butterfly bush, they cut them down to about 2 feet, it looks like, and they're blooming at just over 6 feet. There are other upright, narrow growing Thuja occidentalis other than emerald, but this definitely looks like emerald to me. De Groot's naturally stays a little bit narrower if you want to use one that's just naturally narrower. These are on such close centers that at some point they're really going to be into one another. Despite the fact that emerald stays narrow, by the time it's, you know, these can get 20 feet tall or more, they're really going to be eating one another quite a bit. So De Groot's might be a better call if you were going to try to put them on as soldiers like this. Again, I'm not going to probably commit myself to an entire row of the same thing, but it's really effective out here. The other thing about having this dark backdrop to this, the sun's coming up behind it again. This is definitely not the best lighting for being able to shoot this video, but that dark lighting right there allows anything in front of it to really pop. So you see these hydrangeas just pop off of it, the chartreuse colors pop off of it, the grasses pop off of it. Anything you put on this side of it is really going to stand out against that. Where the one end down there had the Bloodgood Japanese maple, the other end has a weeping cherry, and it's looking pretty good. There's some growth coming out down below the graft. Weeping cherries are grafted trees. That Bloodgood Japanese maple is a grafted tree. There's lots of our ornamental trees that we buy, red buds and other things are grafted. Keep an eye on any growth that's coming out near the ground. There's just growth literally crawling across the ground behind this thing that's coming out below the graft on it. That growth is usually more vigorous than the top part of the tree and can cause some problems in the future. But we thought we'd just stop here and show off this really interesting, this is, again, it's in front of an automotive shop, and it's really beautiful. Hides what they're doing back here. You know, they can park cars back here that they're working on, and you know, instead of that being what people see coming down the road, they see this beautiful line and then their sign here, you know, to come in to the automotive shop, you know, rather than an automotive, the look of an automotive shop, right? So even automotive shops can be beautiful, it turns out. So there you go. Beautiful little row of Hydrangea Paniculatas, Emerald Arborvitae, and some other things blended into them up here in Northwest Connecticut. Thanks for watching.